Hi everyone, and welcome to Loose and Lore with Meg. Today we're diving into Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and while crocheting a granny square inspired by its beautiful and atmospheric cover. Before we dive into the review, let's go over the materials I'll be using for the granny square. And I am using a mix of 6 different yarns today. It typically, hopefully, will not be that many, because basically that means I'm switching every round, which is not as fun. But for the square, I decided to pick some colors that, one, represent the mist and the fog and the ash that is within this world. And then I picked 3 like purples to blues that represent the different colors that are on the cover. So if you're new here, I am crocheting a granny square to go along with every book that I review, and the plan is to turn that into some sort of sweater or cardigan at some point when I get enough to do that. Right now I'm at 2, so we're starting off good. So like I said, I used 6 different yarns. I used 2 Lion Brand Pound of Love yarns in Elephant Gray and Oxford Gray. And I used 4 Red Heart yarns in Amethyst, Dark Orchard, Charcoal, and Soft Navy. Actually it's Dark Orchid, not Orchard. So those are the 4 that I used for Red Heart Super Saver type yarn. Both of these mixed really well together because they're both like, the acrylic standard super similar yarns, so that was great to be able to mix those 2. And I will be using a 5mm hook to go through and create my granny square, so that way they're consistently the same size. My goal is hopefully by the end of this year, as in 2025, because I just started this project, to maybe have enough to start building out the sweater cardigan. I'm going to up my review game as I go forward, because my whole hope is that doing this channel I'm going to be reading more and therefore I can review more. And so that's definitely the goal going forward, is to work more book reviews into my channel, in addition to other booktube content. Now let's talk about the book, Mistborn: The Final Empire. This is the first book in the Mistborn saga. It's the first one in the original trilogy, and then of course he has written more within this world. So it is the only one that I've read so far, so I have not finished the series. Anything that I say here as far as my review only pertains to the first book. If it changes without, the series, maybe I'll review those going forward once I read them. But this only pertains to the first book and nothing else. So just to let you know going forward, this is all just within the first book. So Mistborn: The Final Empire is set in a world where ash falls from the sky and mist rules the night. The immortal ruler has held domain over this empire for thousands of years, oppressing the Ska, which is like the lower class, almost slave equivalent of this world. And I say almost when I should just say is the slave equivalent of this world. And they live in constant fear of those who are a part of the royal, noble families. The story follows Vin, who is a Ska, street urchin. She definitely, kind of bounces from group to group, feeling the needs that are needed within that group, and just trying to survive. And she discovers that she has the powers of Allomancy. I say that word wrong every time. Allomancy, which is the ability to ingest and burn metals and to gain powerful effects. And she ends up getting taken in by this group who is a thieves guild, basically, that is ran by Kelsier, who is their charismatic leader. And he basically is planning to overthrow this whole governmental system and the Lord Ruler, and wants to teach Vin how to use her powers. So with Vin being your main character, you are going through and learning about this world and the powers that she has, and is getting trained and kind of realizing the harsh realities of this world that she was only a little bit privy to. She obviously comes from a low class, so she knew the harsh realities of that, but she doesn't comprehend the worldly status that is being held up And so it's really cool to learn through her eyes all the world building that is within this book. This book explores some very powerful themes, and of those, the most prevalent is hope and rebellion. The fight for freedom against the oppressive ruler is at the heart of this story. It's a tale of standing up to the powers that be, no matter the cost, and really having hope that it will be enough, that what you do is enough, and understanding that it might not be, but you have to try. Otherwise, the world will never change. It also has very strong themes of self-discovery. Ben is transformed from a scared, distrustful, powerless girl to someone who is so powerful within their own right, but also is standing up to fight for those around her and not just making it day by day and surviving, and realizing that surviving is not enough. There's also a huge theme of power and how it corrupts, and the story raises a lot of ethical questions, even about those who are on the good side, about their use of power, and how even when they are trying to wield it for good, it still has a sense of corruption and the sense of, are they doing the right thing? Even though they think it is it actually the right thing? And I think seeing that through Ven's eyes is really nice, because she's coming in fresh. She's coming in not knowing everybody's background, and she's like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? Is it actually helping those you're trying to help? And I think that's a really great parallel and kind of push and pull, because she's asking a lot of the questions that as a reader you're kind of wondering about. And so it's really cool to have that worked into the story. I also wanted to point out some of the common critiques of the book, just so that way you know those going in. Some readers felt like the pacing was super slow in the middle, because the storyline and the plot line goes from action to planning before it gets back to action, and that middle section can feel very long. It is a lot of world building and a lot of almost teaching the reader at the same time as teaching the character, so it can feel like a heft of a section to get through, but the payoff is so worth it. And while the twists and plot points can be very engaging and exciting, there are some that are very predictable. I definitely predicted some of them. And so for seasoned fantasy readers, that might be a bit of a turnoff, just because they are not as nuanced as they could be, or they're a little bit too foreshadowed in some sense, or follow traditional fantasy plot lines that, is kind of been there, done that type thing. I do think it is written really well, so for me that was never a turnoff, but it definitely could be a critique of this book. My biggest critique of the book is that the Lord Ruler was this mysterious kind of mystical person that you're trying to understand his motives and why he's done the things he's done and what his past is, and you start to see a little bit of that, but it never was really fully understood, and I'm hoping that we get more of that going into further books. So it's not something that I fully expected to be fleshed out, but it's definitely something that I felt was a little lacking of. It felt more like, this is the bad guy and you just have to understand that he's the bad guy, versus actually understanding his motives and why he done the things that he done. So that's definitely something I would like to have more of going forward. Another common critique is some of the secondary characters aren't as fleshed out as your main characters, which is typically the case. But in this one, you definitely have a lot of secondary characters. And so it's hard to give the attention to each of them that you kind of would have liked, because there's some very interesting characters within this. So it's definitely something going forward. I hope we get more within the next books. But within this one, there's definitely some of the side characters and the characters within the rebellion that I would have liked to know more of. And it definitely, some of them felt like they were left open-ended for a reason. So that part I'm excited and intrigued by. So on the other hand, the magic system, the character growth, the unique world building are all real like strong strengths of this book. Vin's journey throughout the rebellion really makes for a gripping read and strong female character growth, which is lovely to see, especially when it's written by a male author. The magic system is without a doubt my favorite part of this book. It was so cool and it's so well balanced. Like, it feels like every part of it was thought out and every part was counteracted and balanced between each other. So it never feels like one piece of it is too much stronger than the rest. It is all built off of the Allomancy, which is where you burn and ingest metals, and depending on the metals gives you different abilities. You have Mistings, which are the people who can only burn and ingest one type of metal, and then you have Mistborn, who are people with the ability to burn multiple metal types. And I think, if I remember correctly, they can burn all of them. Like, if you can burn more than one, then you can do them all. Which is an interesting, like, take. It would have been cool if there was, like, the secondary middle class of it that would have been like, oh, I can only do this grouping. You know what I mean? Because each of the metals have, like, a counter metal, which is very interesting and balanced to this whole thing. Vin is a Mistborn, and so you get to learn about the magic system through her, like most of the book. And like I said, each metal really gives you different abilities. Iron can pull towards a metal object. So like one of the things that's used a ton without this book is they'll have a coin, and then they can pull themselves to the coin. Or if there's metal on the side of the building, they can pull themselves towards the metal on the building. Steel is a counterpart to iron, and steel actually makes you push. So you can push metals away or push yourself away from a grounded metal. The next pair is tin and pewter, and tin enhances your senses around you. So you hear better, you see better, you can smell. Everything that is more of an internal sense gets heightened, and it's very useful for when you're sneaking and trying to get through the city unnoticed. You can use these to be able to know who's around you and that kind of thing. Whereas pewter enhances your physical strength, so it becomes stronger. It helps you heal, all that kind of aspects. And so those are very cool yin and yang to each other as well. And then the last pairing I'm going to talk about is copper and bronze. Copper makes you hide your ability and basically it makes you invisible to those around you, or you can cast a copper cloud, as they call it, and hide others around you. Which is really cool for like hiding out their bases and such. And then bronze lets you find others using their abilities. So that's a kind of pair of hide and find. I really love how this magic system plays off of each other, and every action this way has an equal and opposite reaction the other way. It's very scientific and just really well balanced, and my brain likes it when stuff is balanced and harmonized that way. So overall, the magic system is quite complex, but also it's strategic and adds layers of tension and creativity on how these different elements can be used. And so it's really cool to go through and see how Kelsier and Vin kind of navigate using these different abilities and the different ways they get out of situations and stuff with them. So that overall is my review of Mistborn: The Final Empire. It is a phenomenal start to a series, and I cannot wait to continue on. It is imaginative, and the world building in magic system and characters are so compelling, and it just makes for an unforgettable read. While it has some pacing issues and predictability, the story remains engaging and super like accessible writing. That's one of the things that I really loved about it, is it didn't feel like the writing was very complex, so therefore it was so easy to get into. I think if the writing would have been more complex, it would have been too much. So the fact that he used such straightforward writing to get you into this world really keeps you hooked and just gets you into the system and everything like that. So this, without a doubt, is a 5-star read for me. I loved it. It was dynamic. It was unforgettable, and I cannot wait to continue on. So thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So I was sitting here working, and in the back of my head, it was bugging me. I knew I had forgotten something. And it was killing me that I couldn't figure out what I was forgetting. I didn't know what it was relating to or anything. And then I looked down at the side of my desk, at the other side that I don't work on because I have like an L-shaped desk. And I saw this. And I realized that in my review, I never showed you the actual finished granny square. So this is it. I did, like I said, the grays in the middle to kind of represent the mist and the fog and the ash and all that. And then I pulled some purples to kind of match the cover because it's so pretty with all the different purples. I didn't quite have like that like pinky purple color. I didn't have that on me, and I am trying to use yarn that I already own so that way I'm not buying a ton to do this. But yeah, this is my granny square. So this is how it turned out. So I have these two now, which are super polarizing in color, so that, you know, you can kind of see what the vibe of my sweater is going to be. It's going to be all over the place, which I'm actually really happy about. So yeah, I wanted to insert that real quickly here before the end and let you know that that is how the granny square turned out, and I'm really happy with it. So let's go back to finishing up my review. So thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have read Mistborn, share down below your thoughts. And if you haven't, do you plan on reading it since listening to this review? I hope that you enjoy. Thank you for watching. Happy reading. Stay cozy, stay crafty. Bye.